This is Robert Alaniz, and this is the Collecting the King Show, episode 21. And before we get started, please take a moment to hit the like button. And if you like what we do here, then hit the subscribe button. And once you've subscribed, if you hit the bell, you will also be notified about all future shows. Okay, so now let's get started. First of all, I wanted to talk about the reason why there was a time lapse between the last show and this one. For those of you who don't know, I recently had a routine checkup because I was having some issues with pressure and stuff like that. When they went in and did this small test, they actually found out that the problem was much, much bigger than that. They found out that I had a blockage in 4 arteries. The test that I was going in for, thinking I wouldn't stay more than a day, it turned out that I ended up staying a week, and I went into major surgery and had a quadruple bypass. And to give you an idea, here's a picture of how I spent my Labor Day weekend. It was a scary experience, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen and everything, but I knew that when I got better, I would be able to do a show. And it's been about 6 weeks since my surgery, and I'm feeling pretty good, and people told me I'm looking pretty good, and so I'm back. And I want to thank all of you viewers who wished me well and sent me emails and comments, and my Facebook friends for your prayers and concerns during that very, very serious and scary time for me. Really appreciate it. If you grab your friends, or if you're watching for the first time, please hit the subscribe button and get on board and help me get to that 1,000, okay? And I promise you I will keep shows going, and we've got a lot of great topics. So please subscribe. The last show I did, I made a off-the-cuff comment about people not opening albums or Elvis albums. A subscriber by the name of John Bull suggested, why don't I do a show about that? So, a show about when should you and should you not open a sealed Elvis album. So that's what today's show is going to be about, and we're going to call it Make Me Know It. And I'm going to make you know it. I've found out how to find out what's in a sealed album without opening it. So let's talk about that. Okay, let's start by saying when not to open a sealed Elvis LP. Okay, now there's a lot of controversy about this because there's some people out there that just have to keep everything sealed. Some people get the new FTDs and they just won't open them. So you don't get a chance to appreciate the inside because they're always like double LPs, or at least most of them are. And you don't get to appreciate all the great pictures and artwork and graphics inside just because you don't want to open it. Now, if that's the case, then buy 2 of them. One you can open and the other one you can leave sealed if that's what you really want. But I think it's sad when a person gets a beautiful album from FTD and you don't get to see all the graphics. You just decide, well, I'm going to keep it. You can always take the sticker, and a lot of people say, well, I don't want to lose the sticker or whatever. Well, you can take the sticker off. Usually they actually peel right off the album, and or with a little help of lighter fluid, you can also get the sticker off. And then you take the sticker off, and then if you take it right off right away, remove the shrink, and you could put that sticker right back where it was, and it's on the album. And I know the reason why people do this or are worried about it, putting the sticker on the album and everything. From Memphis to Vegas, Vegas to Memphis, okay? That sticker that usually is on the back cover advertising the 2 bonus photos is really, really rare because it was a double album, and a lot of people open it up like I did when I bought it back in '69, and the shrink, I just threw it away and didn't think twice about it. That's why if you could find it with the sticker, and I know I've shown it on a few, I think I showed that album on another show I did. If you could find one with that sticker, it's worth a lot of money. But the mentality is, for some reason, if you get to follow that Dream albums, and if you remove the sticker or don't leave it exactly as it was, that this is going to take away from the value. It's silly, I think, to think that the sticker on a new album, a new release, is going to be of the same value as the stickers from the albums in the 60s or even 70s. If an album is sealed, and it's early album, I mean from the 50s or 60s or 70s, or even 80s, you would probably want to keep them sealed if there wasn't the possibility that there might be a different pressing inside. Because RCA sometimes did kind of screwy things. And let me give you an example of that. This is Love Letters from Elvis. And I think I've talked about this on an earlier show, but here is a perfect example. All right, this is the very first pressing of Love Letters from Elvis. And at the top, you can see the RCA logo is at the top, and then Love Letters is below. And I think I mentioned this before, the story that I've been told many, many times, and from some pretty reliable sources, is that either the Colonel or Elvis, no, I think it was the Colonel, was not happy with the fact that RCA put their logo above Elvis Presley. Elvis is supposed to be the big thing, and you know how the Colonel was. So what they did was they ran a second pressing. And when they did, they moved the RCA logo down below and then put Love Letters from Elvis in the middle, leaving it in the middle, and made it 3 lines instead of 2. But anyway, what a lot of people don't know is that this album here, now when it first came out, it was on orange. It was an orange label record. And I have back here that copy. Here's the same album, all right? And this album, when you open it up and take a look, it's the orange label, right? So, I mean, when I bought the album, it was an orange label. Now, I met a guy a while back. Who knew Felton Jarvis and was rather close to one of the factories where they print the albums. I got this album from him, and it was sealed. And he said, "You better open it. It's not orange." I said, "Well, that's impossible because the tan didn't come out until 1976." And I know I told this story in an earlier show, but this is an example of a record that you don't know what you got unless you open it. So here it is. This is tan. And honest, I swear, this was sealed just about a half hour ago. And I had to open it because I was going to show you guys that it also came with a tan. It's a very strange story because, you would think that the first cover, this is the one that RCA got rid of, and they replaced it with the other cover. That was an orange label. For sure. I mean, those were orange labels, right? Even though the second cover was a reissue, which means that at one point in time, RCA just said, to hell with the Colonel. We got all these covers printed up, and when the tan labels started getting produced, they said, you know what, let's just use the old covers. I mean, this is only my theory, but I think it's a good one. And RCA did that a lot. Sometimes they would use the same cover over and over and over again. So anyway, just getting back to the sealed aspect of this, whenever you get a sealed Love Letters from Elvis, you almost got to open it because you've got to see, do you have the tan or do you have the orange? If you have the orange, you have the original pressing. If you have the tan, you have the 76 second pressing. Okay, so that's a good example there. Okay, so let me give you another example of an Elvis album. Again, you almost have to open to be sure what you've got. Here is Elvis Today with the sticker. Okay, and normally if it has a sticker on it, it's usually the first pressing. Without the sticker, it's the second pressing. All right, so let's take a look here. If I'm correct, this is a tan label. Depending on where you live in the United States, and if you bought this album when it first came out, you would notice that it was tan, and you would think that that's how this album was released, right? Wrong. In certain other parts of the country, you would find it to be orange. And this is kind of a weird thing because this album was released, I don't have the exact date, but when this album was released, it was released just around the time that they started the tan labels. You have to open these to determine which one you have. The orange one is of greater value because, based on the research that Jerry Osborne and I did, we believe that the tan label was pressed in 2 plants, and the orange was only pressed in California, you have to open it to see which one you got, because if you have the orange, it's worth more, like as much as $50 more than the tan label, which is more common. I think it was the very last pressing of this album was on a black label. I know there's somebody in Europe who found it, and they have it on eBay, and the starting bid is $1,000, which I personally think is crazy. But a black label pure gold is, really rare and worth some serious bucks. I don't know if it's worth $1,000, but anyway, it's valuable and very rare. So I was walking through an antique mall, and I happened to find this, and the description that this guy had about the record was this. It had the Best Buy logo up here, right? And then over here it had the Best Buy sticker. And it was a wraparound cover, meaning that the cover folded like a book and they glued it together. And that's what the black label came in. So when I saw this, it was sealed. And it was like $20. And I don't want to pay $20 for a pure gold album, especially a reissue. But I called up Johnny B and I said, well, what do you think? Should I take the chance? And he says, well, look at it this way. If it's not, you got an album that's worth $20, which is pretty much what you paid. But if you open it and it's black, you've got an album worth hundreds of dollars. So it's worth it. So I opened it. It was not. It wasn't black. And I was very disappointed. But it turned out to be the orange label. Some of the original orange label records were released as rigid vinyl and flex. One of the rarest, and it's documented in Presleyanna, is That's the Way It Is on rigid. I have a copy of it. The value just keeps going up and up because no one can find one. I think they were still pressing the rigid vinyls at one point, and there was probably a point in time when they decided to go from the rigid to the Dynaflex. And That's the Way It Is was right there. And some copies got out rigid and other copies were flex. And one way you can always tell is by the inner sleeve. In the case of rigids versus flex, there is a rigid pressing of Elvis Country, but again, very short run of it. Elvis Live at International Hotel, Memphis to Vegas, Vegas to Memphis, was rigid. When they divided it up, the International Hotel and back in Memphis, single LPs were rigid, but not for long. They ended up going into being Dynaflex. Those albums there, those first pressings on rigid of albums that came out in 69 or on the cusp of 69 and 70, around the time that they went to the Flex, are worth a lot of money. They're probably the most valuable and sought after. The early albums, like in the 50s and 60s, especially in the early 60s, when RCA, had the RCA long play label, and then they had the RCA living stereo labels when they decided to do stereo pressings, and starting with Elvis's Back. For a very brief period of time, I think for a year or less than a year, there were a couple albums that came out with the silver stereo at the bottom. Now, those silver stereo albums, the first releases, including Roustabout, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the silver stereos were in baggies, but I guess there's a possibility they could have been in shrink wrap. I know that they found His Hand in Mine that was in a living stereo cover, and it was silver stereo at the bottom. And I know that sold for like, I don't know, $800 or whatever. But it's a short run. So again, getting back to records you should open and records you shouldn't, there are a few early ones that could be worth a lot more, but you have to open them to see if they are. They do sell really well. They're very valuable if they're sealed, if they're early albums, especially if they're in the baggie. So you may want to keep those sealed, but if you're curious and you want to take your album from, say, $500 up to $1,000, or 300 up to 6, then you may want to open it. I know a lot of people won't touch baggies. I mean, I don't know if I would ever open one myself. I think if I had an original and a baggie, I'd probably keep it that way. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how you can tell what a record might be on the inside if you're trying to determine whether or not it's a rare pressing or not, and you don't want to completely break the seal. What you can do is you can take the album and you basically split the sealed portion of the album about maybe an inch or two. You can open it up just a little bit. If you see one of those sleeves in there, that'll tell you what pressing that is. You see the star, like up in the corner? That means that you have a later pressing. Or you can open it up, and like I was saying about that's the way it is. I mentioned that it came. You can tell if it's a rigid without opening it completely would be this sleeve here. So if you have this sleeve, or you see this sleeve and you split it and you see this sleeve, this will tell you that you actually have a rigid, an orange rigid. The later one came in a sleeve like this. This sleeve here is mostly for the 71 and pressings. Most of the time they're orange Dynaflexes, and then a little bit later on, I mean, you might even find a tan or two in there. But for the most part, this is the sleeve that either has an orange or maybe possibly a tan. But it's definitely going to be Dynaflex. It will not be, as far as I know, I've never seen an orange rigid in this sleeve. Because RCA used the same covers, in some cases over and over again. I just recently found out that Elvis for Everyone, I thought it was the same cover all the way through to the 90s. But somebody had mentioned, oh no, it's not, because the first pressings, the gold rim around each of the albums on the back cover is more of a gold, and then the later issues are yellow. So some of the albums have different things on the covers that you can see that will help you determine a first pressing. You know what? Let's take a look at some of these inner sleeves. I noticed there was a YouTube video where somebody did the whole video dedicated to inner sleeves from Elvis albums, and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but and I knew I was going to do this anyway. So let me just go through what I know from experience. First of all, in the 50s, the albums as far back as the first album and the second album, they all came in like wax paper. I know that sounds weird, but the paper, the inner sleeve was like a wax kind of see-through paper, and they all came that way. Then later on, they started doing Elvis's catalog, and I believe A Date with Elvis is right here. They would start printing stuff on the inner sleeves, and they made them paper. So they got rid of the wax paper thing altogether. So that's an example. Here's another example of one, and this one came out a little bit later than that one. That one has A Date with Elvis on it, but if you'll notice, this one here has Elvis's Gold Records Volume 2. But you'll notice the trend where they start putting the albums, the latest album on the inner sleeve. And I think that maybe gave them the idea that the inner sleeves they can use to promote things. When Elvis's Back was released, there was a sleeve that actually promoted Elvis's Back on the sleeve. And here's another sleeve. This is a very common sleeve from early 60s. As time went by, they continued on, and you'll see these probably through 64 through about 66. Then they went to the pink one, and this is the one I told you about where this was, they were still rigid pressings, and this is where That's the Way It Is was in this sleeve. That's how you know if you break open the seal and you take a look in the corner and you see this, with this color, you've got the original. And then as time went by, they just continued on with this trend. I mean, here's another sleeve. But all of these sleeves here, like these black and whites, like here's one for 8 tracks, all right? And then, of course, here's Elvis's Camden releases, and it goes up to I Got Lucky. Oh, it goes up to Separate Ways, so this goes up pretty far. It even has one for the reel-to-reel tapes, okay? These are all 70 sleeves, and this is too, but I think this is the sleeve that they finally, it's one of the last sleeves, and that's the one with the star that I showed you before. because I know that some tan labels in '76 came in this, and then of course black labels also came in this sleeve. And I'm talking about the 1977 or '76 black label reissues. I have a list here of albums that are good examples of albums that, if you get them sealed, you should probably consider opening, with certain exceptions. The Memphis to Vegas, Vegas to Memphis double LP. If it doesn't have the back sticker on it, then you should still probably open it, because it could be the correct songwriter titles, or it could be a tan, or it could be a black. But the covers all look the same pretty much. As I showed you, the Elvis Today and Promised Land. Elvis is in Nashville, which came out, one of the last albums of the 80s that came out. It was a black label and there was a red. And the red label, I believe, was, I think the red label is probably the rarer of the two. Love Letters from Elvis, we talked about that. Kissin' Cousins without the cast photo. Boy, that's a weird one, because the very first pressings of that on silver stereo did not have the cast photo. But here's the weird thing. That album, I found copies of that album all the way into the 70s with Dynaflex records in them. And the cover was without the cast photo. But that just goes to show you, again, RCA's plants, what they do. They decide, well, we got covers left over, so let's throw this record in. I mean, that's the only explanation. They had covers, Kissin' Cousin covers without the cast photo laying around, and they decided, well, let's just go ahead and, put an orange in there. I've never seen with a tan record, but I definitely saw that cover with orange. The question is, did they reprint that cover? Maybe by mistake, and it was without the cast photo? Or did they just use old covers? I don't know. His Hand in Mine is one. It has the rare silver stereo, which I told you about, worth like $800 now. So if you have His Hand in Mine, you may want to open it up. Elvis in Concert, CPL1. This is the rare one, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It was released, I think, in the record clubs, RCA Record Club. When you ordered it through the record club, they changed the label to black. Now, if you know anything about the Elvis in Concert, it's a custom-made blue label. And that's throughout all of its first pressings. And then even the second pressings, the CPL1s, okay, which was the reissue, also had the blue label. But what's weird is the black label is in there too. So whenever, no matter what, when you find a CPL1 sealed, you got to open it. I mean, you got to, because that black label is worth well over $500. The CPL reissue is barely worth $100, barely. So that's another album that you have to open. Valentine Gift for You, they had it on red vinyl, but they had the anniversary label originally when it first came out. And then for some reason they went to a black label, and red record with a black label. That sells for over $500. I know because I saw one sell in Memphis for $350. Somebody got a deal. Another example, and my last example, is Elvis, His Songs of Inspiration. Now, this was a bonus album that I believe went with a box set. And what's weird about that album is it has 4 different labels. All right? They all are RCA special products, with the exception of one. Another one has it on the top. Another one doesn't have special products on it all. And then another one is a gray label without the dog. If you find this album sealed, you have to open it. And it's not that rare. I mean, you're not going to lose nothing by opening it. It's not all that valuable anyway. Depending on what's in there, each of those different label variations are worth different amounts of money. I think the special products on the left side of the label, that's the most common one. All the other ones are worth much more. And then let's make sure we understand the baggie and shrink wrap timeline. I've had many conversations with collectors about this. Mostly everyone knows this, especially people my age who bought Elvis records as far back as the early 60s. Or if you bought them back in the 50s, you know even better. But when RCA albums were first released to the public, they were sent to record stores, and these are the ones with usually the wax sleeve on the inside. Ones in the 50s were all sent to the store without any protection, and then it was up to the store owner to put them in a baggie. And they would put them in a baggie and they would seal them. That's why every once in a while you'll find original King Creole album, and you'll look on the back and you'll see the King Creole photo, the bonus photo, visible on the back cover in the baggie. That's happened many, many times because when they sent the albums to the store, they sent the bonus photos. So they left it to the record store owners to put them inside a baggie. That's another reason why you find some baggies sealed that have Sears Roebuck on them or Montgomery Ward's. So that went on from 1956 through 63. Now anything that came out from 1964 on was in shrink wrap. If you find a sealed, it happened at the World's Fair, in a shrink wrap, for example, you find that, I guarantee you, that's a 64 reissue. If you find it in the original baggie, then you have the original living stereo. Baggies all the way up to 64, and then after 64, RCA sent the records to the stores in shrink wrap. So the bottom line, knowing or not knowing, well, it's all up to the collector. Nobody's going to buy a sealed copy from you when you say, oh, I'm sure on the inside it's a silver stereo. Well, no one's going to take that chance, especially if they're looking specifically for the silver stereo. So you almost have to open it up so that if you do go to resell it or you want to show it in your collection, you got proof of what it is inside. But a lot of people leave that record sealed, which I think is crazy, when it inside it potentially has a rarer record inside. But again, like I said, it's up to the collector. Some collectors just, if they get it sealed, they just leave it sealed, no matter what's inside. I think it's a smarter decision to open up a sealed copy of an album that could possibly have a more valuable record in it. That's just my opinion, so it's up to you. As you can see, I have my new Elvis on Tour shirt, which my wife gave me for my birthday. Thank you, Carol. I think I got it after my birthday, right?
Yes.
I mean, it was almost like I got it after surgery. This is my after surgery present from my wife, Carol. She was actually going to give me a birthday present in Memphis, but it never happened. So anyway, the reason why I point this out, of course, is because we have some updates on Elvis on Tour. First of all, the box set from Sony Legacy. I had made a comment on the last show that the original Johnny B. Goode sequence opens the movie on the Blu-ray, and that they had made the change and put it back. I have to apologize. I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't know if the new Blu-ray of Elvis on Tour that comes in the new package includes Johnny B. Goode. It might not. I just happened to overhear it in Memphis. I heard a couple people talking about it and saying that it included it, so I just assumed and I said it. I hope they do. That would be nice, having the Elvis on Tour movie exactly as it was released. But I guess we'll find out. Now, the new release date for Elvis on Tour for the box set, it's been moved. It was going to be in December, and now it's January 20th. So they pushed it back. And you'd think with the anniversary, the 50th anniversary coming, I mean, they had years to put this together. You know what I mean? So I don't know what these guys at Sony BMG are doing, but for some reason, they didn't have the foresight to have this stuff ready in time for the 50th anniversary. It's stupid. The latest news I just read is that FTD is definitely doing an Elvis on Tour box. I don't know if it's with a book. I don't know if it's going to be like that really thick box they did for That's the Way It Is. But there's definitely one coming. So we're going to have the regular domestic release, the Sony BMG release that's available to everyone. And then Follow That Dream is doing one. But I just read that it's been delayed. They were supposed to have it done by the end of the year, and now it's been delayed, and they're talking about maybe it'll be out by the middle of next year. This should have been taken care of a long time ago. So anyway, that's the latest on Elvis on Tour. Some more news on the vinyl release of the soundtrack of Elvis, the movie, from Baz Luhrmann. The release date is November 18th, which is coming up, and the cost is around $28, and I know you can get it off Amazon Prime. The question now is it a domestic release or an import? Even though you get off Amazon Prime, I don't know, does that mean it's a U.S. release or is it an import release? I've been hearing some different odds and ends of opinions on that. Will it be one or two LPs? Well, we know for sure that the one on Amazon is a single LP, but then I heard some weird rumor that if it's released in Europe, it's going to be a 2 LP set. So I don't know. Again, this is just a rumor. I'm not saying for sure. Like I said with the Johnny B. Good on the Blu-ray, there was a rumor at one point that there would be a record store day release of either the album or a single, like maybe a 12-inch single of one of the dance mixes. God only knows, it would probably be Eminem. But anyway, it's not going to happen. But there is new news that there will be a Walmart release. And you know how Walmart does different albums on colored vinyl with a sticker? Well, apparently Walmart is doing a release of the Elvis soundtrack on gold vinyl, I believe. All right, so that's cool. There's a new release that just came out, which I think is awesome, and I thought I'd show it to you here. This just came out. This is original master recording of Blue Hawaii. This is really cool. I just got a copy for myself here. And what it is it's a gatefold cover. And you have to open it up, of course, to see what's on the gatefold. And I will open it up because I do want to see what's on the inside. But this is what it looks like. It is 180-gram vinyl. And what's really cool is it's 45 speed, which means a lot of people don't know this, but if a record is played at a 45 speed, the fidelity is richer and the sound is better. That's why this company puts out these records. They did it with Billy Joel, and they did it with Jethro Tull and a bunch of other artists, where they put it out on 2 LPs and at 45 speed. Side 1 only has 4 songs, which comes to a total of about 8 minutes. So on side 1, it's only 8 minutes. Then for those of you who hate to get up and have to turn the record over, this will drive you nuts, because the next side is Can't Help Falling in Love, Rockahula Baby, and Moonlight Swim, and again it's only a few minutes. It's like 5 or 6 minutes, 8 minutes. Then you got to get up and turn the album over. But I'm sure the sound fidelity is incredible. So this is a great release, and there's not too many original master recordings that have been put out on Elvis. I know from Elvis in Memphis, which I heard there's a box set coming out of some sort. I'm not sure when, but a new box set with 2 LPs. Not sure what that is. Probably the same thing as this, 45 speed, which would justify the 2 LPs. But this was really unusual, because half-speed masters of a movie soundtrack, not, kind of unusual. But then again, Blue Hawaii was, one of his best-selling albums, if not the best-selling album. So it makes sense that they would do it. After I got out of the hospital, I got a phone call from Joe Tunzi. And I know you guys all know, most of you know who Joe Tunzi is. He was on my show, and we were talking about cassettes and 8-tracks, and he has a new book coming out, which is going to show all the 8-tracks and all the cassettes and all the releases, covers, whatever. I think he's on 2 shows. One, him talking about the book, and the other show, he's talking about how he got into becoming a publisher for Elvis books. But anyway, he gave me a call, and he says, guess what? The book is done, and it's going to be available really soon. I don't know any more details about that, but if you know Joe Tunzi's website, you might want to go there and see if it's available, because he called me 2 weeks ago and said it was coming out in a couple weeks. He also said, he'd like to come back on the show and talk about the book, and I said, absolutely, let's do that. And I know Jules is going to be real excited about that, because, he and I got all obsessed with cassettes after that Joe Tunzi thing, and several other of my viewers also started digging into their cassettes to see what they have. All right, so that's Joe Tunzi coming, new book coming out very soon. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to mention too is, we just did the show in Memphis, and I sold a lot of stuff there, but I still have plenty of stuff for sale. anytime you watch one of my shows and you see something up on the wall, the odds are I'm selling it. So anytime you see something and you think, oh, I need that album, or I need that His Hand in Mine, or anything like that, just send me an email and I will let you know if I have what you see back here. But I have other things too. So what I've decided to do since I got out of the hospital was I'm going to start putting things on eBay. So you might want to kind of watch out for that. It's under Sounds Good Records, okay, which is the name of my business. So if you see something from Sounds Good Records, you'll know that that's me. I will mention Collecting the King in the description for all of the items, so you know that it's me that's selling the stuff. So that's coming up very soon. We're going to be selling a lot of Elvis stuff on eBay. So don't forget to send me your inquiries and want lists to collectingtheking@gmail.com for pricing, shipping, and payment details. We have over 1,000 Elvis 45 CDs and LPs in stock, as well as RCA promotional items, sheet music, authentic Las Vegas and tour souvenirs, and more. We don't have a list or catalog available, which is why we encourage you to send inquiries and want lists. If we don't have something you're looking for, we might be able to find it for you. So don't forget to contact us at collectingtheking@gmail.com. So, if you have any suggestions for a show, something you'd like to see, enter it in the comment section below, and, or send me an email, and I'll take it into consideration and see if it's something I think I can do and have fun with. Okay, Carol, I think we're done. So I can't believe it, folks. I actually made it through here. I'm still recovering from the surgery, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do a show. So here it is, folks. So again, I am Robert Alaniz. This is Collecting the King. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And I am out of here.